talk to you a little bit about what's going on in Southwest North Dakota and what we're doing out there and some of the results we've seen. One thing that we're looking at a lot more in the West and the Southwest is looking at fall applications of pre-emergence type herbicides. And one that we did this last year was looking at application of metribuzin combined with Zidua and field pea, just to see what effect that would have and how well we would get control of our kochia tolerance to PPO herbicides and such things as sulfentrazone and sharpen saflufencil is becoming more common. And we need to look at fall application as a time that we can get out some of our pre-herbicides. This is especially true out west where we don't get as frequent a rainfall and we're in no-till production. So trying to get those herbicides out there and on that surface in the fall so that they're incorporated and working in the springtime when we plant. So these treatments were applied late fall, November 4th, and we normally try to delay application of fall treatments until at least mid-October. Sometimes it gets delayed by weather, and this year we had some weather that held us out till November 4th till we got a window that was ideal for application. The treatments we looked at we're looking at Zidua at 4 ounces, and then 3 rates of metribuzin, 4, 6, and 8 ounces of the 75 DF, and then combinations of the two, and compared to an untreated and just a fall application of glyphosate. Weeds that were present in the trial included cheatgrasses such as downy brome and Japanese brome, along with wild oat, kochia, wild buckwheat, and some prickly lettuce. In this trial, we sprayed some Section 3 clethodim across the entire trial after weed control evaluations, just because we had so much wild oat and cheatgrass that we needed to do something about. So looking at cheatgrass is a combination of both downy brome and Japanese brome. The first bar was with just that was just the fall application of glyphosate. So we got about 25% control of our cheatgrass. When we applied the Zidua, we got up to about 86%. We got a little bit of control with the metribuzin at the 4, 6, and 8 ounces. And then our combination, we're mostly above 90% control of cheatgrass. For wild oat, we saw something very similar. We had almost 85, 86% control with Zidua. A little bit of control with the metribuzin, but not particularly well. But combinations got us up to, around 90%. Looking at kochia, both Zidua and metribuzin, we got similar kochia control or in the 80s, maybe a little bit better when we did the combination at the highest rate of both, but they were very similar across the board, all in the 80s up to low 90s. So this is something I was hopeful that we could get some kochia control with fall applications, and we had 80% control is not terribly bad. So for wild buckwheat, neither of these products performed very well on the wild buckwheat. The best was a combination of 4 ounces of Zidua and 8 ounces of metribuzin, where we got up to about 80% control. With Zidua alone, we're around 50%. The highest rate of metribuzin, we got 69%. So it's not something that's particularly great on wild buckwheat. Applying a application of something like Spartan in the springtime would help a lot with this. Looking at yield for our untreated control was similar to the fall application of Roundup by itself. All applications increased our yield, with our best yield being the combination of Zidua and metribuzin. 4, 6, 8 ounces, it didn't matter. We got about the same. And this is primarily due to better weed control across the board with both of these herbicides. So for the bottom line on this, if you have cheatgrass in your fields or wild oats, fall application of Zidua helps a lot in the springtime for controlling these. You can still probably benefit from a post-application of a grass herbicide such as clethodim in peas. That works really well. For fall applications of Zidua, it helped to control cheatgrass, wild oat, and kochia, but not enough control of wild buckwheat. I didn't show a slide on prickly lettuce, but it doesn't control prickly lettuce all too well. Applications of metribuzin in the fall helped with kochia, wild buckwheat, and prickly lettuce, but very little or no control of cheatgrass or wild oat. The combinations of the two provided good excellent control of all the weeds and resulted in the highest P yields. Yes?
Did all treatments have glyphosate?
Yes. Brian Jenks asked if all treatments had application of glyphosate in the fall, and yes, they all got the same glyphosate treatment in the fall. So I'm going to talk next about a trial that we've been doing the last couple of years, looking at kochia control in spring wheat with post herbicides. This trial was conducted in 24 and 25. I showed these results last year here, but wanted to update you on the results, what we had this year. They were applied on June 7th in 2024 and June 18th in 2025. We were delayed a little bit by weather this year. I'd hoped to get it out a little bit earlier, but with wind and rain and everything else, we were held back. In 2025, if you look, our kochia got up to 4 inches, so it got a little bit taller than we would like. And you'll see in our results a little bit different from what we had in 2024. So this is the list of our treatments. They're mostly combinations of fluroxapyr and bromoxynil with other herbicides added to it. But the trade names are listed on the side, active ingredients on the left. So long list of herbicides. I could go through them, but I want to spend more time talking about the results of these trials. So this was 2024, and I showed these last year. You know, with styrene by itself, we were in the low 70s, and the combinations of fluroxapyr with bromoxynil and other treatments, we were in the 80s and 90s for the most part. So pretty decent control across the board. It shows the advantage of not just using fluroxapyr by itself as trying to control kochia. We need to at least add bromoxynil to it. Our better controls a lot of time were with some of these other combinations. But we had different results in 2025. And again, our kochia got up to 4 inches, and we were only at 62% with the styrene by itself. And you can see pretty much a rate response as we went from 4 to 6 to 8 ounces of bromoxynil as combined with fluroxapyr. The only 90% or better was Husky FX. Then Husky by itself, 88. Talinor was 81, and Tolvera 87. So not bad. They were mid to higher 80s. The Carnivore were 74 and 79. Styrene by itself, 78%. And then when we added some Bison. Bison was 78, and then styrene plus Bison, we got into the low 80s. We also looked at common lamb's quarters. Styrene is not good at common lamb's quarter control, but all our combinations did really well at controlling common lamb's quarter. So, but if you compare 24 and 25, what I noticed mostly is you have a lot more greens and yellows in 2024 than 2025, and we only had the 90% in 2025. So the bottom line on this is, if we're trying to control kochia, that 2-inch height is extremely important. If we get it up to 4 inches, we're gonna drop off that control and we're not gonna get as good results. Wheat is very competitive with weeds. And we may not, in a lot of these trials, we didn't see a lot of yield response, but what we do see is a lot of kochia in the fields after harvest where we don't control them very well. And those weeds produce seed. And like Tom was talking about, we need to do a really good job of controlling our weeds in wheat crops so that our rotational crops where we have fewer options, that we aren't putting all this weeds into the seed bank to have to worry about. So there are still many options for controlling wild buckwheat and kochia in spring wheat, but we can't rely just on fluroxapyr. We need to have at least 2 modes of action. 3 is better. So like Tom was saying, we need to, we can't just rely on a single mode of action. We need to combine things and try to prevent getting herbicide resistance and doing a good job in controlling these weeds. I'm going to talk a little bit about Maestro EXT, not very long. This is a new herbicide that's upcoming. They're hoping to have it available in either 26 or 27. That's this year or next year. They don't know. It's depending on the EPA and how soon that they can get it through to being labeled. It's a combination of dichlorprop and bromoxynil. So it's group 4 and group 6, and they're looking at a 20 ounce per acre application rate. It's good. It got a good crop rotation interval for most crops, and controls just broadleaf weeds. So this is just a look at our wheat with some kochia growing in it. This was untreated plots. This was with Maestro at 20 ounces per acre. You still see the kochia in there at 14 days, but it's definitely been affected. And I'm not showing this, but at harvest, you couldn't really find very many kochia there at harvest. They were pretty much gone. This was at 14 days after treatments. This looks at kochia and wild buckwheat with Maestro at 20 and 30 ounces. So we got about 85% control with the 20 ounces and up to about 89% with 30 ounces. And then this was compared to Husky FX at 18 ounces. So Husky FX, we got a little bit better control and that's the high rate of Husky FX. But I think with Husky, you get more complete burn down. And the weeds that we saw, like in the picture, they're still alive, but they're not competitive. And by the end of the season, they weren't there. Now switching to a non-crop. So leafy spurge is a problem we still have out west in our pasture and range, and did a trial in this last year looking at options for controlling leafy spurge. So leafy spurge is a noxious weed that's on the noxious weed list for North Dakota. It's not palatable to cattle. Sometimes sheep or goats will eat it, but still not the best feed for them even. We looked at controlling a trial to look at different options for control. These treatments were applied on September 27th in 2024. It was a filled site. It was a pasture that was grazed by cattle. It was fully mature with some fall regrowth at application timing. It was applied at 20 gallons per acre with a hand boom. We evaluated on May 28th and June 30th in 2025, and we'll be looking at it again this coming summer.
When was it grazed relative to the application time?
Brian asked when the field was grazed prior to application. We put out the application immediately after the cows were taken out of the field. So up until that point, there had been cattle out there grazing. So the trial included I'm just calling experimental 1, 2, and 3, but it's aminocycle pyrachlor with chlorsulfuron and metsulfuron. Aminocycle pyrachlor is a labeled product called method, but the one that we're looking at is a not labeled product yet. And then looking at combination, premixed combinations with metsulfuron and chlorsulfuron compared to Quinstar, quinclorac, Quinstar plus 2,4-D, and then this aminocycle pyrachlor plus Quinstar, and then compared to Tordon, which has been kind of a standard for leafy spurge control. So looking at this, we had our evaluations on May 28th in blue and our June 30th in gray. You saw on May 28th, we had almost 100% control with the 10 ounces of aminocycle pyrachlor. By June 30th, that had dropped off to about 93% control. So still pretty good control. Our combinations with chlorsulfuron were a little bit less than, especially at the low rate, had dropped off considerably down to around 80%. The metsulfuron was about 90% with the low rate and 98% with the high rate. Quinstar, the quinclorac, I was pretty happy with this. We're up in the upper 90s. This was a lower rate of Quinstar with 2,4-D, so I think what we had was that the Quinstar or the quinclorac was doing the bulk of the control, and the lower rate we saw a little bit drop off of control. Our best control was the combination of this Quinstar plus aminocycle pyrachlor, where we had 100% control on both evaluation dates. And I was a little bit disappointed with our results in our Tordon, in that it went down from 82% control on May 28th, and we were down below 40% at June 30th. So not as good a control as I would expect it with Tordon, but I was very pleased and happy with the aminocycle pyrachlor combinations and the Quinstar.
Did you evaluate those this year?
Brian asked if we're evaluating again this year. Yes, this summer we're going to reevaluate to see, looking at a second year. There is a little bit of grass stunting that you get with aminocycle pyrachlor, especially at the higher rate. It's nothing I'm too concerned about. One thing that we did notice in that the treatments that had the best control of leafy spurge got grazed a lot more than the plots that had a lot of leafy spurge in it. So that may have impacted it too, because the cattle got in there and grazed it pretty hard when they didn't have to fight the leafy spurge. So this is our untreated control. You can see all the leafy spurge out in the middle of it. This was 10 ounces of aminocycle pyrachlor. And this one you can see some of the stunting, especially the smooth brome was affected more than anything else. But definitely see a little bit of stunting of the grass. This is the aminocycle pyrachlor plus chlorsulfuron and plus metsulfuron. You can see it's pretty clean. There's might be a random leafy spurge here and there, but not bad. This was with the Quinstar, really clean. You can see on the edges, you can see the leafy spurge on the edges of the plots, but nothing in the middle. And this was our best treatment, 100% control with aminocycle pyrachlor and Quinstar. And this is our Tordon plot, and you can see the leafy spurges popping up all around it. So not as good as I would have expected with Tordon, but I was happy with the other treatments. So for leafy spurge, we got really good control with aminocycle pyrachlor, especially combined with Quinstar. It's not labeled yet for pasture in the U.S. They're working on getting a label. It is already labeled for use in Canada, a product called True Range. With this, we'll probably have similar restrictions as you see with Milestone for hay. The aminocycle passes through the digestive tracts of animals and can be spread. If you spread manure or hay onto sensitive crops, it can cause injury. Also, if you cut hay within 18 months of application, it can only be used on farm. And this is what the Canada label says for that. And you can't use that for mulch or compost on sensitive plants. And also with aminocyclopyrrochlor, it's very toxic to tree species. So do not apply it around trees or other sensitive species. So that's what I have for you. I'm happy to answer any questions.